Hey everyone, this is GJ, your Chief Operating Officer at LAFS. First of all, I'm very sorry about making everybody wait for such a long time. You know, there was my voice problem, this work, that work, blah de blah de blah, and all those lame excuses. Well, I'm so sorry. Well, today we finally move on to Way of LAFS Series 2. Before we move on to our main message, let me please remind you about what Way of LAFS is. So what is Way of LAFS? So those are the basic principles I want you to keep when you work at LAFS. No matter what happens and under all circumstances, I want you to keep those basic principles when you work with me at LAFS. And also, just to recap, does anybody remember what our Way of LAFS rule number 1 was? Way of LAFS rule number 1 was, regardless of what your dream is, make LAFS the starting point of your dream. And when I say this, let me promise you, and let me promise you again, as long as you tell me what your dream is, I will not forget about your dream. I will make sure to help your dream come true as long as you work with me at LAFS. No matter how small, no matter how big, I will support your dream. I will make sure that it comes true when you work with me at LAFS. Now, let's really move on to our long-awaited rule number 2. So here we go. Way of LAFS, rule number 2. Your problem is not your problem, but it is our problem. And once again, when you just hear the rule, it sounds very confusing. So what does it really mean? So let me please demonstrate. In fact, using the very slide that we probably remember from a few hours, from the very moment I'm taping this thing. Now what we are looking at here is the very team chart that I have shown you in the regular weekly meeting at LAFS Korea. So we've seen this slide from LAFS Korea project meeting. You know, and everybody can see, you know, what they are doing and things like that. But what I'm really trying to show you here is that the project doesn't run by itself. This is teamwork. And of course, it will be teamwork for the next project and for all the future projects at LAFS. Okay? But just to demonstrate my rule number 2, let's just imagine that there was a big problem. Actually, sorry, let me stand corrected. Let's just say there was a very small problem that Noel had, but Noel just tried to solve it by himself, but he couldn't. Okay? And everybody was ignoring it because it was Noel's problem. And Noel's just, it was like, oh, okay, you know what? I give up. Goodbye, LAFS, and he's getting out of the picture. Okay? And that problem became a little bigger since the very problem owner doesn't exist anymore. So the problem moves on to Noom and Miss Tui. But Noom was like, okay, if Noah doesn't stay, why should I suffer from the problem? And Noom gets out of the picture as well. And Miss Tui, who was sitting down there very quietly, she was like, okay, this definitely is not within my capacity, so goodbye, LAFS, bye-bye. Boom. And all the operation team, because of that one small problem, is now all gone. Now who's going to take care of all these operations? Now the bigger problem is not just in the operations, but the bigger problem is that design team, no matter how awesome video or your graphic designs are, now they don't matter. Why? Because even the order comes in for LAFS Korea, nobody's going to take care of that order. Who's going to make the money for you? Now it started as a small problem, now it's a disaster. The whole project is collapsing and nobody's making money out of this. Now, what am I trying to say? Let me tell you, let me read this rule number 2 once again. So your problem is not your problem, but it is our problem. And what I really mean by this, and the very idea behind the rule number 2 is the snowball effect. Something starts as very small, gets bigger because nobody takes care of it, gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and boom, bam, boom, and we have a disaster. Guys, when I say this rule number 2, what I'm really saying is that I do not want to see this snowball effect. And you don't want to see this. As long as you work at LAFS, once you ignore one small problem, it's going to be like this. That's what I'm trying to say from this rule number 2. Your problem is not your problem, but it is our problem. Guys, remember, at LAFS, there is only one kind of problem, and that is our problem, always. No matter how small, no matter whose problem, that actually it seems like it is actually our problem. As you have seen, any small problem can grow into big problem, and eventually what? Boom, bam, boom, the very big disaster. And we don't want to see that, and you don't want to see that. Guys, once again, thank you for watching. This is GJ, your Chief Operating Officer at LAFS. Until the next time, thank you and love you all. Bye-bye.